Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hangin' from the Rafters with your host, Brewster Smith. Look at that. Here we are, working out the kinks. Got some fancy lights going on. Got our special effects working. Isn't that exciting? We're glad for anyone who's watching right now. How many people we have watching right now, love?
3.
We have 3 people watching. So glad to see you. Have a couple of people in the studio audience. That is real applause, ladies and gentlemen. Real applause out there. Now, if you can see this, I always like to make sure everyone can see this. If you would like to donate to Rafters Tavern to help keep us afloat during this insane pandemic, then please donate to www.venmo.com/Rafters-Tavern. That's www.venmo.com/Rafters-Tavern. And I'll probably show this at another point. Now, some of you may have seen the video that I made in the past about how we decided to come up with a jingle, right? If you haven't seen it, it's available on the Rafters Tavern YouTube channel. You can see when we decided that we're going to need a jingle to support our takeout business. And I've been doing a little bit more work, just a little bit more work on that jingle. And I'd like to play it for you. Hold on. Okay. I've been doing just a little work. I'm kind of proud of it. Just give it a listen. Hold on. It's coming. Well, that's all I got so far. I'm still working on it. It is a work in progress. Stay tuned for the farther I get in that particular song. All right. Now we have a magical show for you this evening. We have here someone who I like to call and is known throughout the area as The Voice. Please give a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Palermo.
Thank you, Brewster.
Scott, it's good to see you there.
You got something with that jingle going, though.
You like that?
Already, I've thought of a second word.
Have you? A second word. That's great. That's just great. So how are you?
I'm doing just fine. I mean, we're a little hunkered down and trying not to be bored. We're finding things to do. So, and one of the things we've gotten to do at least is play a little more music.
Well, you've been playing a little bit more music. I remember you telling me earlier this evening that you've been holding an occasional concert at your house, right?
Yep, we sit on the front porch and sing to whoever is in the neighborhood that's sitting close to a window. So, yeah, that's been fun. We had a couple of visitors that came down from a few houses away just to find out who we were and brought me a complimentary beer, which was always appreciated. And it's been really fun. Even if nobody's listening, we have a good time.
So, well, that's fantastic. Now, you're a big hiker as well. Weren't you saying that you've been traversing the trails?
We have. We've been all over, up and down the National Recreation Area along the Delaware and done different hikes that way. We went down to Ricketts Glen State Park. There's a fabulous hike there where there are 13 waterfalls in the course of the loop. And Yeah, Gene and I have been out just about every weekend when the weather's been nice and with our boots on and having a good time. It's a great way to get out. It makes the whole week go better once you've spent the day
Right.
outside.
Now, you and Gene, would you say that you're at the exact same hiking level? Does somebody have to wait up for somebody else? Are you guys keeping up with each other? What's going on?
Oh, you see, I'm required to go first because she is deathly afraid of snakes. So I have to scatter the snakes first or spot them and send them. And mind you, in all the hikes we've done, we've seen one snake. She didn't see it because I did my job.
You did your job.
But yes, I am always a couple of steps ahead of her for that reason.
What is it with snakes that people are afraid of snakes? Molly, my wife, is afraid of snakes. I have no problem with snakes.
I don't have any problem with snakes, which is why I get to go first. But she can't even see them on TV. She gets deathly afraid of them. So it's one time she was going to the mailbox, and as she's traversing the lawn in her bare feet, said, "This is really dumb. There could be a snake out here." And that was when her foot went down on the snake in the lawn. I thought one of the children had died when she came back to the house because she was that hysterical. So,
Oh my God.
it was just a little garter snake. It was nothing serious, but it was.
Did the snake survive?
I believe the snake was more frightened than she was, but, which is remarkable to say.
Now that makes me wonder, if you're not afraid of snakes, do you have a fear?
Oh, I'm not particularly fond of spiders when I don't know where they are. I think spiders are fascinating when you can see them glistening, the webs glistening in the sun or something along those lines. But when you're walking through the woods and all of a sudden you walk through a spider web and you don't know where the spider is, that freaks me out.
Okay, because I was going to say, if you're mostly afraid of spiders when you don't know where they are, I would venture that you don't know where most spiders are.
Well, I would say that's probably a good point, but it's particularly when I don't know where they are, but I know they're in my hair or on my body somewhere that, and I still don't know where they are. That is, I spent about 6 months living in Australia at one point, and Australia has two very deadly spiders, the funnel web spider and the, what's the name of the other one? But it's like, the other one is like a black widow, but the hourglass is on the opposite side of the spider.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what the funnel webs looked like, and they're pretty plentiful. And I was hiking out in the woods, and I was on a giant boulder, and I jumped down, and there were webs all the way around the bushes that I was in, like almost like a cage. And it did freak me out until I inched my way down to find a stick and dispatch them. But I used to have a spider in my backyard in Australia that was about that big around, in the Tarzan movies where they have the webs that go between two trees. Well,
Sure.
That's what this spider had done. It was an amazing thing. I used to mow the grass and throw grass into the web to watch the spider go or pick it all out again. And
So it seems
eradicate
like you could be going through some flashbacks right now.
I could, yes. Well, that spider web cage was not a good moment.
Not a good moment.
No,
Now, did I see right? Is your middle name begin with D?
it does.
Do you mind telling me what the D stands for?
Stands for David. It's my father's name. So I got my father's first name as my middle name, and my brother got his middle name as his middle name. So, but yep, I like the name David. I named my first son David. So it's
Well, David's a good
Carry
name. I
on.
was hoping to hear. I'm glad it's David. I was hoping to hear something absolutely insane, and
right. Well, it's not D'Artagnan or anything.
D'Artagnan,
like that,
there you go. You could tell people it is if you want.
I could, but we've already blown it.
All right. Now, as I introduced you, I said that you are known as the voice. Let me tell you guys that Scott's voice reminds me of Randy Travis, the country star Randy Travis, or or James Earl Jones. If James Earl Jones could sing,
I'm flattered.
he would sing like Scott, and I would like you all to hear it too. Let's pick up a guitar over there.
All right.
All right. Now, what are you going to play for us?
So I mentioned that I spent some time in Australia, and my whole family went over. It was my father was actually on the had his sabbatical and was on the lecture circuit there for 6 months. So we lived in Sydney for 6 months. My brother and I left before the rest of the family to come back for a summer job. So we went on a 2.5 week camping bus tour through the outback of Australia. So every night we would stop and set up the camp and cook dinner, and then we'd load it all back up onto the bus and head out in the morning. So what it really was, the longest pub crawl I've ever been on. It was an under 30s tour. So every night we would hit the local pub wherever the bus landed. And then we'd sleep until we got to some place of incredible beauty, and we'd wake up in the morning usually mid-afternoon, and then get off the bus and see this incredible place of beauty, whether it was natural beauty or, gorge or part of the desert or whatever. And one time the bus stopped, and we got out of the bus, and I was struck by the fact that it was incredibly green. If you've ever been in the Australian outback, it's very drab green, but this place was very green. And what it turned out that we had stopped at was a military graveyard. And so I was really struck by the contrast and the poignancy of this peaceful, but to my mind, terrible place in terms of the toll that we had paid for the folks that were buried there. And so I got back on the bus and wrote this song, which was probably the first song I ever wrote that was worth singing again.
And what's the title?
Called Military Graveyard. I walk through the road of death. I wonder what it's like. Have a bullet smash your dreams and cut out all the light. Do you feel it penetrate? An explosion in your head? Do you wonder why you died? As your name is postmarked dead. Walking through a military graveyard, old friends passed before my eyes, wasted in a game they didn't want to play. No one even understood the prize. Stones are all standing there, so very straight and still. Keep each one lies a reason to think before you do. Will we ever appreciate those men there in the ground? Will we just make the same mistakes till their answers we have found? Walking through a military graveyard, old friends passed before my eyes, wasted in a game they didn't want to play. No one even understood the prize. Killing goes on. I suppose it will never end. Man would rather kill a man than to take him for a friend. As you walk through the roads of death, saying this night, this small patch of beauty, worth its terrible price. through military graveyards. Old friends pass before my eyes, wasted in a game they didn't want to play. No one even understood the price. Walking through military graveyards, old friends pass before my eyes, wasted in a game they didn't want to play. No one even understood the price. No one even understood the price. No one even understood the price. Thank you.
Well, that's a great song.
Well, thank you.
You've been writing a long time?
I've been writing a long time sparsely. I've only written a couple of songs, but when they hit, they hit. And I'm actually retiring in June, at the end of this coming month, and I'm hoping to focus on writing more and reducing the amount of time between songs.
So you're retiring from?
Well, I'm currently the principal of the Career and Tech School at Sullivan Bosse's.
Wow.
And so I'm retiring from there. Been there for 3 years. I spent most of my career actually started as a guidance counselor, and then I was a school psychologist, and then I was a special education administrator for a couple of decades. So this was a bit of a change for me. I actually retired from that part of my career and took this job, and now I'm re-retiring. See if I can do a better job of it this time. I wasn't very good the first time, yes.
Yeah, well, some people are ready for retirement, but I know there's lots of people who they think they're ready to retire, and then they don't.
Agreed, and I think that I was not ready the first time, but I'm ready now.
You are ready
and
now.
I think that music is a big piece of that, because I'm really anxious to focus more on my music and writing and performing out more. Not done a lot of performing out until recent years. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember, didn't you tell me that was it a voice teacher? Who was it that you sang for?
Oh no, it was nobody that important. But I started playing guitar when I was a senior in high school. My brother actually took lessons, hated it, and so the guitar was lying around the house. It was, I believe, the model was Sears' worst guitar, and
that's an interesting title for a
yes,
product.
it was. It didn't sell well, but. So I had Sears' worst guitar, and I decided to pick it up, and I taught myself, and much to my parents' amazement, after spending all kinds of money for my brother to take lessons. And then I went off to college with Sears' worst guitar, and I was sitting outside my dorm room in the hallway one day. I'm not sure why I was locked out. That's probably another story. But I was sitting outside playing my guitar and singing, and 2 doors to 2 different rooms opened up simultaneously, and 2 heads came out of those 2 doors and said in unison, "Shut the fuck up, you're fucking awful." Hence the reason I did not perform out for a long time. It was a moment that it has taken me years to get over. But
Are you scarred?
I'm scarred, deeply scarred, but recently the scars are healing over.
Well, that's good.
Rafters is a piece of that, because it's been a good place to perform.
Well, thank you. We're glad to be here. Well, then I would like, on that note, to hear your next song.
Oh, well, let's see. What is my next song? Well, I think stay with the 12 string for the moment, but those that have heard me play out know that one of my biggest influences is the music of John Prine, who we recently lost to COVID-19. And I'm still recovering from that. But this is probably the first John Prine song that I ever learned, and what made me fall in love with his music. It's called Hello in There. Had an apartment in the city, in Loretta, like living there. It's been years since kids grown, life of left us alone. John and Lydia living on my heart. Joe is somewhere on the road. We lost Davy in the Korean War. So don't know what for. Don't matter anymore. And old trees just grow stronger. Old rivers grow wilder every day. Old people just lonesome, waiting for someone to say hello in there. Me and Loretta, we don't talk much more. Sits there, see the back door straight. All the news just speaks itself like some forgotten dream that we both see. They all go Call of Duty, work together at the factory. What'll I say when he asks what's new? Nothing, what's with you? Nothing much to do. You know, old trees just grow stronger. Old rivers grow wilder every day. Old people just lonesome, waiting for someone to say hello in there. If you're walking down the street someday, spot some hollow ancient eyes, please don't just pass them by and stare, as if you didn't care. Say hello in Thank you.
You know, I don't know if you can see over here that I have to juggle sound effects machines and lights all at the same time.
Well, I've always said you were an incredible individual. So
An incredible individual. Thank you. Well, that's a fantastic song, and I know that you're a huge John Prine fan.
Indeed. He was a huge loss to the world, but he left us many songs. So
Absolutely, that was a big shock.
yeah.
As I was listening to that song, it made me, for some reason, it popped into my head. I wondered if you have sort of a code or a saying that you live by that kind of sums up how you travel through life.
Oh man, I have a few of them, but you know, some of them are the classics, like it's easier to get forgiveness than permission, and but I guess probably if you do the right thing, you usually come out okay. And I think there are many times when we are torn and pushed or many factors, to be polite, to be maybe not put ourselves in potentially in harm's way, or to not stand up for somebody that needs to be stood up for. And I think that's what I've always let guide me. As an educator, I've always kept my eyes on the students, and if it needed to be done, then it needed to be done. And if that meant that I took a hit in my career, or my supervisor was not happy with me, my job was to take care of the students. And that's what I did.
There's some applause in the back. Let's bring some electronic applause to fill it up. That's great. That makes perfect sense to me, because I know you and Gene, in fact, just incredibly, you just seem like really good people. Really just
we
good.
fake it well. It's good.
Yeah. That's great. So what is your next song going to be for us?
What is my next song going to be? So one of the places, in between learning that moment in the dorm room hallway and starting to play out on my own, I spent 12 years working as a camp counselor outside of Philadelphia. It was an interesting camp that shaped my life. I was there for 12 summers. My parents actually worked at this camp. They encouraged me to get a job, which I had no interest in doing. And they drove me up the road to drop me off at this camp the first summer I was going to work there. And my thought as I was driving up, was like, what a dump this place is. And then stayed for 12 years. So, and it was the children again. I mean, they were Center City, students from Center City, Philadelphia, largely. The camp took a great pride in making sure that the students that came it was a racially balanced group. So we had many students of color, but it was carefully chosen and balanced through the registration process, which I always appreciated. And then after the second year I was there, they took on an environmental bent, which also shaped my life. But it was at camp, through campfires and everything else, that I really began to feel more comfortable, and that people appreciated my music rather than the initial impression from the folks in the dorm, and would actually listen. And it also came to me that music is an incredible tool when you're working with children, because we were not allowed to go out to the bars each night until your kids were all asleep. So when you can sing your kids to sleep, you're out of there a lot sooner.
And you really wanted to hit the bars.
And I really wanted, and one person had what was called bunk duty. The bunks were all arranged. There were 3 buildings with 2 groups of kids in each one. And there was a picnic table out front. So one counselor had to stay behind and be on bunk duty. So I would sing to my own kids, sing them to sleep, and be on my way, and leaving the bunk duty person there. And when I was on bunk duty, I would sing to the entire group, and everybody got out early, so they loved my singing too. So, but it was through that camp that I learned the power of singing to kids, and then also loved the environment. And so this was a song that I ended up later on after camp. I ended up with a friend of mine doing a long series of workshops for science teachers on using music, storytelling, and trade books to teach science and environmental concepts. So
this is a song about that?
This song actually was the very first song that prompted what prompted all of those workshops was this book called Mr. Tamarin's Trees. It's a children's book, and it is no longer in print. It was no longer in print when we started using it. Only in a very lengthy used book sale did I procure this copy. We used to have to get it out of interlibrary loan every time we did the workshop, because we couldn't do it. And then one time we were doing the workshop, and we actually photographed the book and turned it into a PowerPoint so that the people could actually see the illustrations, which are amazing. And as you would expect, sooner or later I had a librarian in the crew who put her hand up, excuse me, did you get permission to use that book that way? I lied and said, yes, I did. And then promptly wrote to the author and said, look, we'd really like to use this book and would you give us permission? And she wrote back, and I have this letter saying, I have no intentions of republishing it. I have no interest in doing anything more with it. You can do with it anything you want. So the answer was true. It was just a little early. So,
I like her voice.
yes. Yeah, yes.
I'm pretty sure that was accurate.
It was pretty much accurate, yes.
All
So
right.
this song is called Mr. Tamarin's Trees. And because I wrote it to do with children, the chorus comes around a lot, which normally I do it as a sing-along, and there's a whole routine I do to get people to sing before I do this song. I'm going to spare you that tonight.
Thank you.
Tamarin's trees, Mr. Tamarin's trees, you can cut them down if you please. It will be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. Cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. Well, you know, Mr. Tamarin couldn't get no sleep till he got those leaves all in. Woke up in the morning, saw leaves on the ground. Yes, everywhere he looked, saw leaves all around. Mr. Tamarin's trees, Mr. Tamarin's trees, you can cut them down if you please. But you'll be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. You'll be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. Wife tried to something because she knew he was wrong. She said she would be sorry and it won't be long. Mr. Tamarin's trees, Mr. Tamarin's trees, you can cut them down if you please. It's cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. It's cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. Well, winter came along and he sure was sore, because there wasn't even one tree left. Sorry about that. Winter came along and he sure was sore, because he still looked it up and opened his door. He knew that his trees would have held that snow. When he looked at his wife, she said, "It told you so." Mr. Tamarin's trees, Mr. Tamarin's trees, you can cut them down if you please. It will be cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. It will be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. And the ground was like blue. Yes, he stepped in the mud and he lost his shoe. And he knew if these trees were sucking up the water, then his lawn would be dry just like it oughter. Mr. Tamarin's trees, Mr. Tamarin's trees, you can cut them down if you please. It will be cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. It will be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. Summer came along and it sure was hot, but there wasn't even one tree left on his lot. Then Mr. Tamarin got the price that he paid, because there ain't no way that a stone would shade. Mr. Tamarin's trees, Mr. Tamarin's trees, you can cut them down if you please. It will be cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. It will be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. Decided that they didn't like their house no more, but without those trees it sure was a bore. So they put it up for sale and they tried to sell it hard. Once the house with stumps in the yard. Mr. Tamarin's trees, Mr. Tamarin's trees, you can cut them down if you please. But it'll be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. It'll be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. Thought of a solution and he thought of it with ease. I'm gonna go out and plant little trees. Well, his wife said, it'll take time, they don't grow fast. He said, I know. I learned my lesson at last. It's tamarind's trees, it's tamarind's trees. You can cut them down if you please, but you'll be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. You'll be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. One night he couldn't sleep, you see, rolled all around. Woke up in the morning, saw leaves on the ground, but he don't fret, don't worry what he sees, because he knows where there's leaves, there's gotta be trees. It's your tamarind's trees, it's your tamarind's trees. You can cut them down if you please. You'll be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in the spring you get wet. You'll be cold in the winter and hot in the summer, and in spring you get wet.
That didn't put me to sleep, though.
Well, that's good. No, that one didn't. No.
I mean, so, you know, I thought I was going to hear like a lullaby, and you were going to put all the campers to sleep.
Well, I did put the campers to sleep, but not with that. Well, actually, I probably sang that one early on before they were still wrestling with trying not to go to sleep. But yes, and then I used that all the way through my school career. We did a lot of these environmental workshops with kids and with teachers. And if you walk around the Delaware Valley School District, where I was at the time, and start singing that chorus, you might still have some people that join in. So,
So you said that you were at the same camp as your parents.
correct.
Does that mean that you get along well with your parents? Because to a lot of people, that sounds like a nightmare.
Well, I wasn't there when they worked there. They worked there when they were in college. And then when I went off to college and they decided that I should get a job, believe it or not, the same director was still directing the camp. So they wrote to him and said, well, they actually encouraged me to write to him. I'm sure it was pre-engineered, but and I got back a letter. Actually, I said it was not old enough according to their criteria to be a counselor. So I applied to be a kitchen boy. And I got back a letter saying, we would like to hire you as a boys' main counselor, which was the 10 to 12-year-old group. And I wrote back, being the person I am, and said, but I'm not qualified. I'm not old enough to be a counselor in boys' main. To which I got back a terse letter saying, we have an opening in boys' main. I was like, oh, I get it now. Okay. So I took the job, and that was the first group of kids that I ended up singing to sleep. So it's an amazing place. It's an amazing camp, and it did shape my life. Actually, I was a psychology major in school, and my father was a psychology professor. And upon my graduation, my father decided to share the nugget of wisdom with me. He says, you know, you can't do anything in psychology without a doctorate. I'm like, now you're telling me this, Dad? You know, so I went back and decided that I had always thought I couldn't be a teacher because I'm one of the people that can come up with the answer in math. But if you ask me how I got it, I can't tell you. So I thought I can't teach anybody because I don't understand it myself. And then I went back to camp, and people said, why don't you be a teacher? I said, I can't teach. And they said, what do you think you do every day here at camp? And I was like, So I went back and found out that I'd have to start my whole college career over to be a teacher. So I ended up realizing through a whole nother story and experience that I'm a good listener. I went back and got my master's to be a guidance counselor, and that's how I started my career.
So have you been analyzing me like this whole time?
Oh, there's some scary shit in there.
You're not the first person to say so. That's great. So speaking of, I'm tempted to ask you about like what was the scariest thing you ever did. Is there something that pops into your head?
Yeah. So it was sort of a series of scary things. I mean, the first one was we decided when I was in college that it would be a great idea to go into this cave called J4 outside of State College, where Penn State does all their bat research. And this cave, well, let me tell you, we were in the cave for 8 hours and did not get to the end of it. This cave is huge. And it's not just a straight in cave. First you have to go through what's called the birth canal to get in. It's that tight. I mean, when you look at this tiny hole in the rock, you don't realize there's this giant cave behind it.
The birth canal.
Yes, and I did go through the birth canal, and that was great. And then, because I was skinny, and I got through there, and then we hiked in there, and there was a point where we had to take a step onto the top of, what was like a stalagmite, and you couldn't see anything down there. And I dropped a rock, and I never heard it hit. And you had to take a step on that thing and then over to the other side to continue on our journey. I believe I was incredibly stupid then, but we did it. There were actually about 8 of us that did this. And I had one of my friends who was afraid of heights and took the first step and froze. This was one of the moments when I realized that I was a good listener and I could help people, because I got her to take the second step. It took about 20 minutes to get her to take the second step and get over the wood. But we were in that cave for 8 hours, and I found some really cool rocks in there.
Well, that part's not scary.
And you know what happened? Well, it is when you put the rocks in your pocket and then you try to go out the birth canal.
Now, did you see the movie The Descent?
I did not.
The Descent is a horror movie about spelunking.
Oh, see, I don't do a horror movie. Life is scary enough.
Oh, Molly and I love horror movies. The Descent is
Okay.
There's all kinds of hairless albino people living down in the caves, and they eat people. So you're saying basically you didn't see any of that?
No, we did not see any of that. But I did mention, as I mentioned, that's where Penn State did their bat research, and we went back another time because we had such a good time the first time. But none of us, our schedules wouldn't allow us to go during the day. So we thought, well, we'll just go at night. It's dark inside the cave anyway. Who cares? So we arrived at dusk at the cave, and out of the birth canal were flying thousands and thousands and thousands of bats that were coming out of this cave to go hunting for the evening. We had to wait for about an hour and a half for them all to come out before we could go in. And yes, we did still go in there, but the walls were like completely lined with bats. I don't know why I missed that the first time, but they were just like bats everywhere.
So what I'm getting from you, though, is you're a good guy. You have this, through line of goodness, doing the right thing. And given the stories from the beginning of this hour and now, you could have been Spider-Man or Batman.
Or dead. That's right.
Spider-Man, Batman, or dead. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Just checking.
Yes, just checking.
All right. Well, that leads us to our next song.
Oh, wow.
And let me remind you, actually, because I'm noticing the lights on this microphone,
Yes,
that even though we're on a stage and it seems natural to sing in that direction,
I should
to sing in this direction.
Okay.
Exactly. What you got?
So this guitar that I'm playing has another story to it. If you'll indulge me, I'll tell you the story.
Sure.
But this is the first Martin guitar that I ever owned. The 12-string that I was playing is a 1978 12-string that is an amazing guitar that's been with me for a long time. I dreamed for years of having a Martin guitar. I used to go up to Albany for conferences all the time. There was a guitar center near the conference center, and I would spend evenings after the workshops were done, of course, going over and playing guitar and trying out everything in their showroom. And one day I saw 3 guitars sitting behind glass in the general playing area. So I went and found the salesperson and said, "What do you have to do to play those?" He said, "Oh, open it up." He got it out, and I was playing this model of guitar, which Martin doesn't even make anymore. It's a treasure. But it was amazing. And even the salesperson commented on it. I'm sure he wasn't trying to sell me on the guitar. He was just telling me how great it sounded in my hands. But I had no money at that point, or not enough at that point to afford this guitar. So then we took a vacation to Las Vegas. And while we were there was a Guitar Center. And I think Gene was taking a nap or something. I said, well, I'm just going to run over there and play for a while. And I came back and said, they have this same guitar. Could I just show it to you? So we went over there and she said, that sounds amazing. Buy it. I said, no, I am not putting this guitar on an airplane from Las Vegas to get it home, because I've heard horrible things about what happens on airplanes to guitars. So we went back and I said, besides, we don't have the money. So I came home one day. I worked in Irvington, New York, which was a good 75-mile commute each way for 10 years as a special ed administrator. And I had a particularly bad day that day. And so I had a long time every day to talk to Jean on the phone. I would talk to her most of the way home. And she clearly knew I was having a really bad day. And I walked in the house, and I sat down, and she said, "Don't be mad at me." That's a direct quote. Went into another room, came back with this guitar and laid it in my lap. I was furious.
You were furious.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that deserves applause for sure.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't believe that she did that for me. Not only, she tracked it down. She got a hold of Guitar Center. She found the exact same model and tracked it down and went and got it, and was just waiting. Didn't want to give it to me on a special occasion. Was waiting for a really bad day. I would have had one really sooner if I had known that that's what she was doing. But
all right.
So this is a John Denver song, which is fitting after that story. It's called "This Old Guitar." Which I'm not playing it very well. Does it sound out of tune to you?
That sounds pretty all right.
Okay.
Don't forget to sing in this direction.
This old guitar taught me to sing a love song, taught me how to lie, how to cry, introduced me to some friends of mine, brightened up some days, and helped me through some cold and lonely nights. Oh, what a friend I on a cold and lonely night. This old guitar gave me my lovely lady, opened up her eyes and ears to me, brought us close together, and I guess he broke her heart, opened up the place for us to be. Oh, what a lovely place, a lovely space to be. This old guitar gave me my life, my living, all the things I love to do. Serenade stars that shine from a sunny mountainside, most of all sing my songs for you. Oh, I love to sing my songs for you. Yes, I do. I love to sing my songs for you. that was one of the ones that did help put the kids to sleep. And
Well, that's a beautiful song. I'm acquainted with a lot of John Denver, but that one I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, it's not one of his better known tunes, but it's a good one. So, he actually wrote it about a guitar that his grandmother gave him, and somebody stole it off of one of his sets, and he lost it for years, and eventually it came back to him. So he was, if I remember right, it was an old Gibson Archtop, but it was an actual guitar he was singing about. So.
Well, I want to test something out real quick. We only have a few minutes left, and I know there's a couple of people watching out there. I would like to see if the audience has a question,
Uh-oh.
and if they could send it through. If you could just text a question. My stepfather says there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah.
You've heard that before?
I've heard that before. I may even have said that to some students from time to time.
And your father is watching.
Yeah?
He says he's watching from tomorrow.
Oh.
He's watching from tomorrow.
Oh, that's my dad is in Thailand. My father's in
Wow.
Thailand, and he's watching.
Lucas says he's watching from yesterday.
That's nice. Lucas
Very
Robin
good.
is watching from yesterday. All right, that's
I've had that
fantastic.
experience.
So give me a question. Give me a question.
And Sandra Carey says John Prine would be happy to hear him sing his song.
Oh, that's high compliment.
That is fantastic. Just one question. Anyone. Otherwise, I got to come up with one of mine, and you never know where that's going to go.
I'll take one question from this audience.
All right, we have a question from the studio audience. Yes, madam.
Are you planning to create a recording of many of your songs in the near future?
Are you planning on, say, recording an album, doing anything in recording for people to get a hold of?
I have assembled various pieces of recording equipment in my home. I don't know how to use any of them. So yeah, if there were assistance to be made and I write a couple more to flush it out, which is my hope to do soon, I would love to endeavor on a project like that.
All right, so nothing at the moment, but you've been
I have
building up
designs
to it.
on doing that, yes, in the future.
Designs on doing it.
We
Okay.
have a question from Sandra Carey.
Sandra Carey has a question for you.
Who's asking who influenced you the most?
Who influenced you the most?
Musically, I would say John Prine, probably John Denver, and Peter, Paul, and Mary. I cut my teeth on Peter, Paul, and Mary songs. So those were the songs in the book that I had that I taught myself to play guitar on.
See, Peter, Paul, and Mary, that's the perfect stuff to sing campers to sleep with.
Exactly. Yeah. And my own children. My primary audience for many years was sitting outside my children's room, singing them to sleep from the time they were born to the time they left for college. They were still listening when they were teenagers. I knew I was doing something right.
Wow, that's pretty good. I was going to ask, are they traumatized? Most kids are scarred by their parents one way or another.
No,
But,
in fact, my daughter, who studied musical theater, booked 3 hours of studio time so she and I could go in and sing. We laid down 12 songs, and that is a recording. It's not for general publication, but it's down for our use.
Wow.
In the studio, because she wanted the original version. She loved them so much. So that was, and she didn't tell me she was doing it. I drove to Chicago, and she surprised me.
Well, that's fantastic and also deserves applause.
And Lucas has a question.
Okay, we have time for one last song. What's it going to be?
Jean has something.
I just wanted to add one thing.
Yes.
She also had him record her wedding dance song.
Oh, so you also recorded your daughter's wedding dance song?
She and I sang it together. We and her fiance, now husband, played piano on it, and we went into the studio and did the Tom Chapin song "Grow in Your Own Sweet Way." It's around, so it was nice to have three of us. And I start the song out. She joins in later, and he joins in at the end, and it came out pretty nicely. And so we danced to ourselves.
Wow.
The father-daughter
You danced to
dance.
yourselves.
Yes.
Okay. That's great. What song is this?
So this song, the other ones are a little better known, or at least better known songwriters. This song is by a Canadian singer-songwriter who's around now. His name is David Miles with a Y. And he wrote this song called Pair of Shoes. And we've all been dealing with this quarantine situation. And to me, this song, he didn't write it during the quarantine, but to me, it's very fitting and speaks to struggles during the quarantine and maybe other struggles that people are having that we may or may not be aware of.
All right.
So it's called Pair of Shoes.
Sounds great.
Oh, I don't need to tell you how it felt. Have the world around me crumble and melt. I don't need to tell you the sorrow and the pain, but I'm guessing you've been there too. Oh, I don't need to tell you what it's like. Have the stress of something keep you up at night. I don't need to feel you in all the places that I've been, 'cause I'm guessing you've been there too. We all walk in a pair of shoes. We all hope we bounce more than we bruise. It don't matter how much you spend, it only matters in the end that your soul don't wear right through. Oh, I could tell you about when I was a kid, about all the friends I had and all the things we did. I could take the time to say that it's hard to see things change, but I'm guessing you've been there too. We all walk in a pair of shoes. We all hope we bounce more than we bruise. It don't matter how much you spend, it only matters in the end that your soul don't wear right through. We all walk in a pair of shoes. We all hope we bounce more than we bruise. It don't matter how much you spend, it only matters in the end that your soul don't wear right through. Let your soul don't wear right through. Let your soul don't wear right through. Thank you.
Well, that's a beautiful song.
It's become a favorite. I only recently learned it, but it's I think it's apropos to our situation and many others.
Absolutely. I think it's fantastic. On that note, I would like to just remind some of you folks out there, if you are inclined, and you certainly don't need to be inclined, but to donate for the show. The site is www.venmo.com. Can you see it? Venmo.com/Rafters-Tavern. Right there, // backward slash, forward,
/
backward.
Help.
There's slash.
Help Rafters bounce more than they bruise.
That's right. And now we have we also have merchandise now, t-shirts, hats, all kinds of stuff for sale on our website, rafterstavern.com. So if you want to wear some of our magical clothing, or carry a tote, or a water bottle,
All right.
bam, you can get it right there. So please, everyone, give a huge round of applause for the magical, the voice, Scott D. Palermo.
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much for coming.
Brewster, it's been a blast. I really appreciate it. Wasn't perfect, but neither is life. So it was wonderful to do this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, everyone. Thanks for coming. And we're out.